Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhi Khwaja. Welcome to the Muslim Philanthropy Podcast. Today on the show, I have Dr. Mohamed Idris from the American Relief Agency for the Horn of Africa. He serves as their executive director. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brother Mohi, and I'm honored to be here.
Great. So, as we do with all of our guests, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And then we'll talk about ARAHA and the wonderful work that you're doing there. And then just advice for people in the nonprofit community as well. So I'd love to hear more about, where you grew up and how you got into this work.
Thank you, Brother Mohi. And my name is Mohamed Idris, and I was born in Eritrea, East Africa, and then I left when I was a child. I moved to Sudan as one of those, as people experience civil war, we have to flee, the family have to flee. We left to Sudan, and I lived in Sudan majority of my life. And then in 1999, I came to the US. So it's almost like 23, 24 years. And within a year, I was part of ARAHA. I was actually a co-founder of ARAHA. As you may know, here in Minnesota, we have the largest East African immigrants. So this organization was established by the community to take care of those who have been, left behind. And as we know, the region still suffering from drought, flood, and other calamities and conflicts. So it was just an organization that was established by the community to help those people in the region, in the Horn of Africa. So we focus on that specific area. And when we say the Horn of Africa, it includes Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Eritrea, Djibouti, that part of the world that we also call East Africa. Okay. And we deliver life essentials like food and water during disasters. And also we develop opportunities for people so that they can take care of themselves through education, through self-reliance projects.
So when you lived in Sudan, in terms of moving from Eritrea and your family being there, did you experience, as refugees in the US, and then being a refugee in Sudan as well, what were some of the challenges that were present before coming to the US that you and the community here in the US wanted to help families back in the Horn of Africa?
Yeah, that's a good question because sometimes I reflect on, what made me join the nonprofit and the humanitarian sector. And most of the time that you join something and you don't know what is motivating you at that moment, but later on you reflect on it after many years. And I think in my end could be that because at one point of time I was a recipient of aid as well, because I went through what many displaced people went through war and displacement, and walking for days and nights, and being scared because of the war. So I went through that. And so later on to be in a position where also I'm an aid giver, and going back to those people who one day I was part of them, is something that I reflect upon. And I see it was maybe what was part of that motivation, that being a person who knows the hardship that people are going through. And I think that kept me going for the last 23 years in this field.
SubhanAllah. I mean, there's a lot of perseverance. There's a lot of coordinating efforts. Coming to the US and starting a large relief agency is no small feat, right? There was a lot of effort that had to go into that. Can you share a little bit more about, those first early years of ARAHA and how you were able to build this agency?
Yeah, so when I came late 1999, and I remember even as a person having in my, I have a family, small family with me, but I have almost like $300 in my pocket, and but it's still, optimistic and that things will be taken care of and resolved, and just having that mindset of people who went through some difficult times. They when they go through life, sometimes they take things easier because they went through some difficult times. But within a year, I remember I found myself joining or thinking about the people who left behind with a group of activists here in Minnesota, from all different background, Somalis, Ethiopians, Kenyans, Sudanese, Eritreans. And we just came together and said, we are blessed to be in the US. We are not thinking about our next meal for our kids, but we also know that the area where we came from is still struggling, and there is a moral obligation that we need to help. So what we need to do, so we have several meetings, and that's how ARAHA was established.
So then going from a new organization to now 20 plus years later, what are some of the achievements that you and your team are most proud of?
It's 23 years seems is a long time, but I think we learn a lot during this time. First of all is that you start nonprofit, and with all this passion, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the how to, but you have that passion that keep you going. And later on, of course, we've realized that starting a nonprofit organization, it's not that easy. It's not about the start. It's about actually the ongoing. It's about the perfection. It's about the growing. It's about how to build a solid foundation that really establish itself, and it's not only rely on one people or two people or five people, but it can be a legacy that can be continue its mission for a long time. I learned personally that there is a lot of work that could be done, and one thing I did in my late life few years ago, I decided to go for a doctoral program about organization development and change. And what motivated me to do that is because I have been doing this leadership and management of nonprofit organization for 23 years. I did the practice and but I didn't have the theory behind all this work. So I said, you know what? Why don't I learn the theory behind the dynamic of groups, the team buildings, the how to lead change within organization, how to know your biases, and how to deal with cultural diversity, and all these things. And so it was an open mind for me, that really there is a lot of work can be done if people also have the the knowledge and the experience. But of course, many nonprofit, they start with passion, with no knowledge, and later on they gain that. So there are many things that really I learned in life, that's very important for nonprofit organization. One of it is really to build a solid foundation, an organization that is established on a system, not on people, organization that have a track of transparency and accountability, because that is our capital, that's our assets, the trust that donors have in our organization, to always to have that mindset of building a system, building something that is going to last, inshallah, for generation and generation. So I learned a lot, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
So as a lifelong student and learner, when you did your doctorate program, what was your main thesis or focus during the program?
My main thesis was about cultural diversity management in the context of international NGOs.
Okay.
And that was a fascinating subject. And I have been fascinated by diversity just as a phenomena, and managing diversity. You know, sometimes when we see the root of the problem that we solve, as nonprofits, sometimes especially humanitarian organization, most of our work, go on the symptoms of the problems. Because we help people after they have been forced to leave areas of conflict, or there is a disaster relief or man-made. But sometimes the underlying problems are things related to politics and good governance, and things like that. So if we go back to Africa right now, a lot of failed state, unfortunately, is because they couldn't manage their diversity. Whether it is religious diversity, whether it is ethnic diversity. So management of diversity is really crucial. It could make countries make diversity as a blessing for these countries, because it can bring richness, it can bring strength, it can bring resources together. It has a beauty. It can bring innovation and creativity. But if you don't manage it well, it can be also a curse. It could be a source
Sure.
of conflict. It could be a source of tension. It could be, and this is not only within countries, but it could be also within organization. If you don't manage your diverse team properly, it can be a source of lack of cohesion. There was issue in communication, in processes. So it's really I was fascinated by this phenomenon, and I wanted to study it. But because when you take doctorate program, and when you want to do thesis, they don't allow you to take big topic. They always ask you to narrow down things. So I took cultural diversity within the context of this sector that I lived in for 23 years. Yeah.
So in relation to these NGOs, and if you were to summarize the top 2 points from your learning, were there other agencies and nonprofit organizations that you highlighted in your study, or was it just general advice that any nonprofit organization can apply?
The two main highlight, if I would give from my thesis, is one is that it's about the nature of managing diversity.
Okay.
Especially cultural diversity management. It's the process is challenging. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It is complex. It is sensitive. And when I say hard, because it involves people, and when you manage people, it's hard job by itself, even if they are from the same background. Let alone when you bring people from different background, they have different languages, they have different thinking, worldview, and managing people like this with different perception, with different motivations, it's just harder. It's also uncomfortable, because there is this cultural diversity brings some awkward moment. I remember one of the participant, he was telling me a story of that they are actually a Muslim organization in Chicago, and so he was partnering with church and synagogue to help the people in Afghanistan. And it looks like it looks like the church invited one of the reporter to come and cover this partnership of faith-based and Muslims and Christian and Jewish coming together. And the priest, I think, of the church was female, and here's the male is from the Muslim organization, and they are talking, and then suddenly the reporter is asking them, would you please hug each other so that take this moment.
Yeah.
And so there is some awkward moment because of people lack cultural diversity. So it's just in summary, it's difficult and hard, and that's why not every leader and manager can succeed in really managing culturally diverse team. So I studied what are the components of success to be successful in cultural diversity management. And I came up with 5 components, and I hope I can remember it right now since you asked about it. So number 1 is self-awareness and social awareness. To know yourself, to know your biases, to know your limitation as a person, and also to people to know the people who are working around you, and they're thinking the way there are certain dimension how different culture look at things. An example could be like the time zone. We have some culture that you tell them at 6 p.m. they come to you at 7, and then they ask you to wait until 8, and then you can go at 9 if they don't show up. So it's just that time is very, very, very flexible. So to know yourself and others. And then the second thing is to be culturally competent, and that means basically to have the ability to function across different cultures. And to think also properly with different culture. That's also another important thing. Training I found it is one of the successful one, because there are some biases that we cannot know unless we trained on it. Like implicit biases. It's difficult to know unless you get trained on. And sometimes we become CEOs. While we are of an organization, while we come from a technical perspective, like an accountant or an IT person got promoted over time to be a CEO, dealt with numbers all the time, not with people. So, we need training from time to time on cultural diversity. We also culture of inclusion is also important. For people to to make people feel that they are respected and accepted in where they are, and it's a culture that you have to bring as a leader to the organization or to your team, and to embrace it yourself, and that's one of the actually component also to be a model yourself as a leader. So because people sense it, your staff will sense it if you are really embracing cultural diversity, or it's just a slogan for you. So these are just some of the components that it's really critical and important for cultural diversity management. And I can talk a lot about this. It need a different. It may need a different episode for that.
Sure. I mean, it reminds me a lot of my graduate program that I did and taking my organizational behavior course. So that was probably one of my favorite classes. So I'm glad you were able to share a little bit more around that and how it can affect the leadership and implementation even of programs at the ground level for organizations.
Absolutely.
What are some of the core programs that ARAHA implements in the countries that you serve?
So we have 8 programs, and we design this program based on the needs of their area. So you can categorize it into, relief aspect is like what, basic like water and food. This is one of the areas that really hit all the time, unfortunately. And we have an extreme case in the Horn of Africa. Actually, climate change is very clear there.
Yeah.
If you look at our relief program, it's two extreme opposite. It's flood relief and drought relief.
Wow.
So every 2 years we have those. So right now, since 2020, for the last 3 years, the region have been devastated by severe drought that killed a lot of animals, livestock, which is the wealth of the people.
Mhm.
And a lot of farms, a lot of farmers' harvest have been failed. It was just very difficult 3 years. And then suddenly since last month, we have a severe flood and a lot of rain. And as you may know, when the soil is very dry, it doesn't hold the water. So it's caused really flooding, and that almost killed over 200 people so far, displaced about a million people in Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Those are the three countries that have been hit badly by this event. So that is the relief aspect that we take care of. But then we know that this is not the answer really, because the problem in this region there is an underlying problem, poverty and ignorance, and so we also focus on education, self-reliance, things that make people rely on themselves. We also have solar energy as part of our program, because as you may know, the equator pass in the Horn of Africa, so we have plenty of solar energy. So we always try to think about how we can take advantage of that to help and bring relief to many families through solar cooker, solar light, so that's one of the program. And we try to be innovative with always try to look at these areas and say, what program is working, what is not working. So one of the process we do is really to think about, okay, if this program is not well, let's stop, let's do something else. We used to do a shallow water wells a lot, sometimes like 60, 70 water wells. But because of the severe drought that happened, we stopped it a couple of years ago, because it's not effective. Although for us as an organization was very good, a lot of people love it. For 3,000 you can dig a well. Sure. But we have to be honest with them and say, you know what, this is not a good investment because the level of water went down. So shallow well is getting dry, and you don't want to just put money there. So we stop and we start focusing on borehole and things like that. So these are some of the program that we have orphan sponsorship. We have sustainability and program. So these are some of the program we do.
Okay. And then in setting up the organization and dealing internationally, working with different partners on the ground, governments, other entities within each country, what have some of the lessons learned and challenges been to effectively send aid to these countries?
There is a lot of lesson, because when you work in the Horn of Africa, you have to deal with local challenges and challenges in the area. The area we work in is very difficult. Sometimes you don't have roads that take you to do things that you want to do. Sometimes unfortunately the local governments are not also helpful. There are a lot of corruption. So how you pass over that, how you can do your work, feeling that really what you are sending is really being implemented. We are human beings, so corruption are there. So how to protect the organization, how to protect the asset of the organization, and then also to know what are the most effective way to do things. Sometimes we as an organization, we caught on the day-to-day work, right? And we just do things because it's just going on. But as humanitarians, we have always to question what we are doing and to question the effectiveness of it. And is it really helping the people? Or, for example, you are bringing culture of dependency,
Sure.
and a bad culture for local people. So we try to bring new ideas, new, innovative way of doing things. For example, few years ago, we built a sand dam. This is one of the new innovative way to capture water. So in the Horn of Africa, we get rain from time to time. Not a lot, but from time to time we get.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem happened is because there is no infrastructure, this water come and get flushed and went to the ocean, and people back to the drowners. So how we can, for example, these seasonal rivers, how we can build like a kind of a bridge that does not stop the water, but to slow the flow, so that you can capture huge amount of millions of gallons behind that dam. And this way you can, a lot of animals can drink from it. You can build or you can dig shallow wells in that
Mm-hmm.
area. That area will be green. And we found it very, very helpful. For example, we start tackling deforestation. We have, for example, dairy goats program. And when we give to people who lost their goats, we ask them, we give them a seed, and we ask them to build to plant the seed in their home, and ask them that to keep it grow for a year, and then we incentivize them that we will give them another goat after 1 year if this become a tree. Because we know this, we are going to solve more than one problem when we have this. And we know people do not have water. So we ask them, whenever you want to wash your hands or you make wudu, just be on that tree at home there. And this way, the little water that you are using, you can use it for that. And this way you have something that can give you shade in future. And we did a pilot project, and we found 60-70% was successful.
That's
So
great.
almost one village that we gave them this, we found like almost half of the village was green.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so sometimes the small tactics that if you are mindful of what you are doing is really helpful.
One of the other things, I just thought of as well is, within these different countries, you have different cultures and of course the diversity as you were talking about, but do they all speak different languages? How are you communicating with your staff to the people on the ground that you also employ and work with? What are some of the challenges there?
Yeah, so the Horn of Africa, although it seems for me from people who are not from there, it looks the same, but it's different. There are hundreds of languages, hundreds of different culture, different religion, and even within ARAHA, we have about, last time I tracked, there was like 10 different languages that we speak within ARAHA team.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is not easy. It's not easy, but we try to have English as a the main language that we, the language that bring us all. But still, we have to manage that cultural diversity that even within that small region of the world, it's very diverse, and it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
So I want to spend some time talking about Sudan as well, because the conflict there, has that presented more need and urgency to support in different ways? And what has ARAHA been able to do in the region there?
Yes, ARAHA actually are among the few organizations that is still working there. Actually, we evacuated our team just a couple of days ago in a city called Medani, or Wad Medani, in 2 hours from Khartoum, the capital. And because we have a feeding center there where we're feeding over 3,500 people on a daily basis, 2 meals per day. Those are displaced people from Khartoum, from the capital, because of the war.
Sure.
And now suddenly, a couple of days ago, the war spilled over and came to this city, and our team has to basically flee, and the people of the IDP has to flee, unfortunately, just to save their lives. And now our team regroup in another city. So we have been working since the beginning of the conflict there. We have a very active team, and actually I joined them last June after the conflict. I joined them, and we went to this area that I'm talking about right now, that we evacuated them. And I saw a lot of devastation, a lot of families who left Khartoum and they don't know where to go. 3 million people have been fled Khartoum, the capital. 2 million of them internally. So a lot of families in Sudan are hosting another family.
Yeah.
And they are just sharing with them the little resources that they have.
Wow.
So the situation is really is bad. But we have teams that are trying to do their best with all this is going on. And this is just tell you, how, grateful we should be really for the field teams that we all work with, because they risk their life. They work in a very hard area. And I like to remind myself, because sometimes we go there, we stay for a few days, but those people are staying there for a long time. So we have a very strong program there, including just right now it's more of a basic relief effort, food, non-food items, blankets, mattresses. When I visited that region, I found pregnant women laying down on a solid ground that's really you cannot even sit in, but they are in this situation, and it's 116 Fahrenheit. Wow. So Sudan is really, and one sad fact about it also is that there is no media.
Right.
You don't hear about that it's the war is going on there, but we made a campaign, but it's really we are not getting that attention. And of course, there are other parts of the world also are going through difficult time, like our brothers and sisters in Gaza. May Allah make it easier for all, and other parts of the world. But we are in this crazy world these days.
SubhanAllah. Well, I want more people to learn about the work that ARAHA is doing. So definitely anybody listening, please go check out their website, their social media, learn more about the programs, how you can connect them in your community and raise more support for the wonderful work that they're doing. Is there anything that we did not cover that you'd like to share?
I just really want to thank you, Brother Muhi, for this opportunity, and for thanks to whoever is listening. And this is really an opportunity to talk about, what we do, and we share ideas. And I look forward also to hear from you, because you bring a lot of people of expertise here. So I'm sure your brain have a lot of ideas that we need to learn from, Brother Muhi. So inshallah, I chat with you also outside this, and we learn from each other, inshallah.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Idris, for sharing with us more about the work that ARAHA is doing. And may Allah continue to bless you and your organization with the wonderful work and necessary work that you're doing.
Ameen, ameen. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Brother Muhi.
Wa iyaakum.
Allah yahfazak, inshallah.